Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back. Thanks again for joining, listening, watching, however you're consuming this episode of Maximize Monday. Very appreciative of all of you taking the time to spend a little bit of time with us from the recruitment industry. So a little bit of a different format than what you might be used to if you're following along Maximize Monday. But I do some of the panel interviews from time here. So this week specifically, we're going over the candidate experience and how we in the recruitment industry try to create a rewarding candidate experience, what that looks like, because that definition can be very different from industry to industry. So I have Robyn and Camille with me who are going to kind of share some of the things that they do to make sure that the candidates in the hiring process are getting the information they need and staying on top of things as much as we all can with as crazy as things can get in the hiring and recruiting industry. So thank you both for taking some time to join me here today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So starting off, and we'll go Camille and then Robyn first. And this question is just kind of giving an overall glimpse of that. So the first goal in creating that candidate positive experience is just kind of understanding what they're looking for from you. So a lot of times that involves just kind of asking that question, what would you like to see from me? How can I make this experience a positive and rewarding one? What would be your expectations along the way? So Camille, what are some of the steps that you take to ensure that you're checking those boxes for them as you go through and take them through the hiring and interview process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my current role, I manage our onboarding process. Well, from creating offer to that onboarding process first day. And something I think is really important, we've all started at those jobs where they really don't have an onboarding plan or really anything. So, I think it's really important to have a well thought out plan for onboarding, sending those emails of what to expect, any forms to fill out, what to review, what to complete. So, I think staying in constant communication, letting them know what to expect throughout the process, timelines, and who to reach out to. I've certainly started as a candidate not knowing what was going on. So I do my best to create the best experience for those new hires. And I think just having a manager or director that creates a really good onboarding process to follow is very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for you, Robyn, how do you go about that since you're kind of working with the candidates and the hiring managers? So creating
Yeah,
that balance and finding that what works best for both.
absolutely. So, I am on the recruitment side mainly. I work for an agency. So, I try to personalize it as much as I can, let them know that I am a human just like them. I try to relate with it, all of my candidates from a personal perspective, kind of gaining their trust and letting them know that I can relate to concerns that they might have, kind of switching jobs and what are my benefits going to look like? I need my kids to have health insurance. I need time off. Like, what's going to happen with summer vacations and school vacations? Am I going to have flexibility? So I just try to really relate with them and just kind of say, hey, I am here day or night. Like, you can reach me. We can talk about any concerns and just make sure that there's like really an open line of communication at all times.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So then I'll pivot to the communication aspect since you both kind of mentioned that as a key component of creating that rewarding experience. So starting with you, Robyn, how do you try to find that balance of maintaining consistent communication, but not kind of over communicating, but at the same time not being too distant? What are some of the steps that you take to ensure that you're tailoring that to the candidate based on their preference and giving them as much feedback as you can based on the feedback that you're getting?
Absolutely. So, I use text communication a lot just because I know it's so hard to answer phones, and a lot of people are back in offices now, being that everybody's going to hybrid, remote's really going away in this world. So, I use text communication as much as I possibly can. I try to set up calls with them that are at a convenient time for them. So, like, I'll say, hey, if we need to talk after hours, we can absolutely do that, being that I work remote. So, I am home and available.
Mhm.
Um, and from a feedback perspective, a lot of the times there's those delays that we cannot control, right? So, and I kind of make that kind of known upfront that it might take a week to get initial feedback, or it might take more than that just because of vacations or time off or whatever is going on. So I do text a lot. I will email and specifically, so I feel like phone calls are going away. I feel like a lot more people want to communicate via text and email, so I really try to lean towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Camille, as part of the onboarding process, then too, I'm sure it's, even a little trickier because sometimes you'll get more questions anyway than you might from the hiring recruiting side of things. So again, how do you create that balance for the candidate as they're going through that process and making sure that you're getting to those questions as quickly as possible so they don't get discouraged along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. And going along with the background check process and onboarding documents, which is really nice because every few days there is kind of a guaranteed touch point between myself and the candidate, just because there's things that they need to be completed, or where they are in the process, I might need a document from them. So I feel like those touch points are already kind of built in, but it is really nice. And I would feel the same if I was a candidate. It is nice to have one person to reach out to who can answer all your questions about the onboarding, the new hire process, and get those taken care of and keep moving through the process as well. But definitely text as well as phone call and email as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robyn, you mentioned the texting, and we'll dig in a little deeper for that for you as well. But starting with Camille, how do you utilize the technology and AI that is available now for people in recruitment and hiring and onboarding to make sure that that's part of the way that you improve the candidate experience and going into efficiency with communication and utilizing templates and texting to make sure that those touch points are in place?
Yeah, got a really great system built out through our ATS, which is really great. So there's certain notifications to send for each part of the process that they're in. So really setting up those templates has been so useful for us, really time effective, and really keeps the process moving in a timely manner. And it really provides them all the information that they need to know. So that's been really effective for us. But as far as I haven't used that yet.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I know it's kind of a gray area for some because we're some of
Mhm.
us aren't supposed to use it, and some it's
Mhm.
kind of a if you can be limited with that. So, Robyn, what has been your experience? Kind of same thing. I know you mentioned that you use texting, but how far beyond that have you kind of dipped into AI?
So, I mean, from the AI perspective, looking at it from our side, the recruiting agency side, right? There's obviously tons of things that we can use.
Mhm.
But I mean, we really try to focus on that we are actually humans. You're not talking to a robot. You're not talking to somebody that's pretending to be me or trying to source you and just funneling you through a process. So, I mean, we use the text, we use AI a little bit for like maybe coming up with questions from like job based off of job descriptions. But I mean, really, I am not diving into it too much. I mean, I like the human interaction, and I've been a candidate myself before. I mean, it's been many years, but I don't want to feel like I'm talking to a robot. So I mean, I have not dived into AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you both raise a great point of just kind of losing that human element the more AI that you use. And people can are starting to be able to tell if they've got an automated response or if it's something that's coming right from you. So awesome
Absolutely.
stuff there. So let's talk about the delays and the uncontrollable aspects of the recruiting process, starting with you, Robyn. What are some of the ways that you work to maintain that relationship, especially when you're dealing with hiring managers that also have a lot on their plates and don't always have oh yeah, I need to get that feedback to Robyn at the top of their list of things to do. But at the same time, you don't want the candidates to get discouraged or feel like they're not important because they are. There's just 18 other things going on. So what are some of the ways that you try to do to nurture that communication as well?
Again, it's just consistency, right? I mean, if I submit a candidate to a client, I am upfront with them and just say, listen, like, this is a part of the process that I unfortunately cannot control most of the times. So just staying in touch with them, like if it's been a week, giving them a call, like, hey, we're on it, we're following up with the hiring manager, just still haven't gotten feedback. When it comes to interviews, I mean, I try to get feedback as obviously as quickly as possible, right? So staying in touch with the candidate from just even a quick text like, hey, I followed up. I'll let you know as soon as I hear. If we're getting into week one, week two, still nothing, I'm going to at least let them know, like, hey, unfortunately, they haven't responded. They are setting up other interviews, or, okay, we know the hiring manager's out of the office. Just kind of giving them all the information that we have so they don't think that like we're ghosting them,
Yeah,
essentially.
absolutely, absolutely. And Camille, you've been in the hiring recruiting process. So now within the onboarding process, what are some of those tips that you kind of take from your time in recruiting to use as you set up like a touch point desk? Because I know you said you're at times the main point of contact as is. So, how do you try to make sure that you're utilizing what you've learned, coordinating that communication to keep on top of it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're in the background check, there can be so many delays or even business changes, different start dates being pushed, things like that. So the best way to be is proactive. Like Robyn said, you don't want to make someone feel like you're ghosting them. So I think even if you don't have any update or you're still waiting for a report to come through for it to complete and clear, just letting them know, here's the ETA I've been given. Unfortunately, we'll hope that it comes through today, but if it's not, here's our plan. And just really having like a plan B, just staying in constant communication. Obviously, we want to bring all these hires on. We want them to start on their slated start date. We want it all to work out, but things do happen. But I think just expressing that interest on your end too, that we'll do whatever we can to make this happen if there is any delay or anything like that. So just staying in constant communication, just continuing to be positive about it as well, and making sure it's still a good experience for the candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. So, question would be tailored a little different for the two of you on this next one, just because of where you are in the hiring interviewing processes. But when you're looking at creating a fair and inclusive process, so starting with you, Camille, and I know you went through a job search recently where you had some things that were at the forefront, mental health and other things that you wanted to make a priority during your search. So now, as you're guiding people through onboarding, through benefits and things like that, how do you try to ensure that you're still creating that fair and inclusive environment and answering those questions that they might have based on what was important to them during the interview and hiring process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it relates to a lot of when I was a recruiter as well, to not create any biases, things like that. So I think it's important to just be professional. And I oftentimes am very black and white. So I think I'm very almost too professional sometimes. So I really like that I give everyone the same answer no matter what. I'm able to forward them along if I don't know the question. So really making sure I'm giving everyone the same experience, no matter what role they are, no matter what state or country, anything like that. Just making sure I'm representing my company and my team very well has always been very important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, Robyn, when you're going through that initial discussion with the candidates, how do you try to find out what matters most to them based on things beyond just, a steady salary and steady job hours? What else kind of matters most to them when they're looking for that next opportunity and ensuring that you're helping them to find that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it brings it back to relating to them and on a personal level, right? I try to sympathize with them, knowing how frustrating looking for a new job can be. And I kind of let them know, like, I'm going to be here throughout the entire process. We're going to make sure that this is a fit from not just your career perspective, but your personal life as well, because work-life balance is a very important thing for a lot of people. And I feel that with the kind of the way things have been and what we've gone through with COVID-19 and kind of how people went remote and now companies are going back to on-site, and it's difficult for these families that they're used to being home, they're used to being able to run to the soccer field or run to get their child from school. I just kind of want to let them to know that I relate with them, and that I understand how frustrating it can be, and just kind of giving them that sense of, okay, you can trust me. Like, I am here for you, and I'm going to do what it takes to kind of make you get the right job and make sure that you're making the best decision for your career and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, start with you, Robyn, and we'll talk about the feedback portion and the questions that you get from the candidates often. And we touched on this a little bit too. And for myself, and I've said this before, that I give it when I can. A lot of times, when it comes to feedback and why wasn't I chosen, it's not something that I can necessarily coach you to improve on. Someone maybe lived 10 minutes closer than you did, or it just came down to industry experience. So not really anything that's going to be beneficial to you in the long run. So, what are some of the ways, A, that you deliver feedback? Do you try to do that, verbally, over the phone, through email? What's best for you? And, how do you try to piece that together to have that conversation? Like, this is what I can offer you in terms of insight for the next interview you're on.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say 75% of the time I can actually give feedback more than just, hey, they're passing on you, right? So I try to I use it to help them in their next role. So if it's like, hey, they struggled with I don't know, coding question regarding C#, or they couldn't really talk about their project management methodologies. I'll give them those details that we get, so at least they can say, okay, you need to brush up on that. Maybe prepare a little bit more on these topics for your next interview. And I typically, if it's negative feedback, I always want to do it via phone. Because I mean, a lot of the times these candidates are investing time, taking time away from their current job to interview. So, I mean, I don't want to be like, hey, you were passed on in an email. That's just not personal. And I want them to be able to come back to me. Like, I don't want to tarnish that relationship just by sending an email saying, hey, yeah, you interviewed 5 times, but I have no feedback for you, and they're passing on you. Right. So I always try to make sure that I at least get them on the phone and give them what I can give them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, Camille, I know that's not something that necessarily happens too much in your current role, but as someone who did just go through a job search recently, from the candidate side of things, what was your perspective on that? Because you've been in the recruiter seat and the candidate seat, so what can and shouldn't be shared, and what you're looking for as a candidate to kind of grow. So what were some of those key pieces of feedback that you were able to get during that search that you felt were valuable that other recruiters can say, oh, I can share that type of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably the most popular thing that recruiters are telling candidates right now is that, oh, we found this person with these skills or this experience, which isn't required, but we're going to go with them. I think then, since there's so much competition, so many people on the market, and that's what I heard a lot of when I was switching from a recruiting to more of an HR focused role. And in those scenarios, there's nothing more you can really do other than try to gain your experience. So I think that was kind of hard feedback to deal with a lot of times, because they did want to give it to me over the phone because they thought I'd be a great fit for the role, but they just needed a little more payroll experience or benefits experience, things like that. But I think the feedback that's always helpful is maybe they provide tips about talking more in depth about experiences and how you went about things. Always those tell me about a time questions are really great to prepare for. I always love answering those. And I think the tips that they give for those are really helpful to relate them to the systems and specific times that you've done those.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about branding and what role branding played. And we'll go back to when you were in recruiting for you, Camille, because I know, again, you're still very active on LinkedIn. So not to say that you don't still take branding very seriously, because you do, but, in terms of it being impactful for you in recruitment and in hiring, how big of a role did that play, not just in terms of recruiting yourself, but also creating that candidate experience, being someone that they felt they could approach based on what they were seeing and what you were sharing?
Oh, absolutely. And when I created content and I was a recruiter, I almost felt like candidates were more comfortable and excited to reach out to you because they've seen your page, they got a little glimpse of your personality. So the conversations were always a little more personable. And it's talent branding is so good for referrals also and employee engagement. And at every company I've been at, they've always done a really great job sharing more about what it's actually like to work at the company, more about PTO, benefits, visiting on-site jobs, things like that. So I think it plays such an important role, and really to attract those potential candidates. I feel like their candidates are always more engaged when they find you through that content on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And how about for you, Robyn, is, working for an agency, you get personal and company branding that you get to kind of play a role in both. So what are some of the ways that you try to do that to, alert the candidates of, oh, I should reach out to Robyn because I align with, not just the jobs that she has, but who she is as a person?
Yeah. So, I mean, I obviously use my personal LinkedIn page, try to post as much as I can. I mean, I definitely don't post as much as I should, but in regards to the social media aspect, I mean, I am probably more frequently than most with our company on there, at least talking about jobs or talking about resume writing tips, trying to get my face out there just so they know that they are dealing with a regular person. I'm as personable as it comes, and so they can approach me and find me that way versus me just, hey, calling them, like cold calling them. Right. I want people to be able to see who I am as a person and know that I've been in this space for, God, 15 plus years now. So,
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, last question is usually based on advice and insight itself, and with the way things are changing in recruitment, new technology, things like that, it's kind of a two-part question here. So, starting with you, Robyn, you how do you try to stay up to date with those best hiring practices, new technology that's being utilized that kind of helps you as a recruiter create that positive candidate experience, and then I know it's not as popular of an industry now to get into, but for a while, getting into recruitment was hot. And so now that it's a little bit more temperate and there are people that are still seriously trying to get into that, what is some advice you would share to someone who's trying to shape who they are as a recruiter just starting out and using that technology at the same time?
Absolutely. So from just staying up kind of on industry trends, what's going on, I definitely utilize LinkedIn. We have a circulation of various articles that are posted by different hiring managers and companies. So I try to read those as much as I possibly can. In regards to somebody trying to break into recruiting, I mean, my biggest piece of advice is relationship building. If you build a solid relationship from day one with a candidate, you don't know what that relationship is going to lead to in years to come. I mean, I have relationships that I started 9 years ago when I was doing manufacturing recruiting that have come full circle for me and brought me business now on the IT and technical side of things. So it's really building those relationships, being personable, being able to relate to these candidates or even clients for that matter, and building that trust from day one.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then for you, Camille, you don't have to do it towards recruiting, because still with HR and generalist tasks, talent acquisition tasks, you've kind of done it all. So, anyone that's kind of getting into any type of avenue that you're into, the software, technology piece, and then insight that you would give for them starting out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Robyn with keeping up with the trends. I find LinkedIn really useful with a lot of articles on there, as well as reaching out to my network. I know I have a lot of people who are in VP roles, director roles, even CHRO roles that I connect with and are mentors for me. And I really like connecting with their posts. Oh, they do a lot of live events on LinkedIn, so those are always helpful to see and how to deal with like difficult moments at work, any management tips, things like that. I think LinkedIn is a really useful tool for that. And for any tips for anyone trying to get into HR or talent acquisition, I agree with Robyn as well about networking. I think finding kind of what you're looking for, I think it's nice to find a niche or just a general area and really just connecting with people at other companies with that similar job title, maybe doing a 15-minute phone call with them, seeing what the day consists of, if they did any certifications, what kind of education they have, if they have any suggestions for you of companies to reach out to. So I think really just putting yourself out there, especially creating content, you meet so many people. And obviously that's how we met Matthew. So I think really putting yourself out there will really help you dive into that field that you're looking to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I thank you both for taking some time to give that glimpse into the candidate experience. I know one of those things that people talk about a lot on LinkedIn and how, you can always do better. So, here's some advice and some insight in terms of how we try to better ourselves every day in terms of creating those positive experiences. So, thank you everyone for watching. If you're not connected with Rob and Camille and you're on LinkedIn, they will be tagged in this. So make sure you're connecting with them now. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.